Imagine an empire on the brink of collapse, enemies breaching its borders, a deadly plague ravaging the population, and conspiracies brewing within the palace itself. Now, imagine all of this being managed, not through brute force, but by the mind of one man, Marcus Aurelius. How did the Stoic serenity of one leader save the world's greatest empire? When we think of Rome's strength, it's easy to picture mighty armies and crushing victories. But during the reign of Marcus Aurelius, the survival of the entire empire depended on something far more subtle: self-control, reason, and serenity. Facing the Antonine Plague, battles along the Danube, and a divided Senate, Marcus Aurelius turned to Stoic philosophy to govern with calm and wisdom. Without this emotional mastery, Rome might have crumbled under the weight of its crises. How many times have you felt overwhelmed, surrounded by problems that seem insurmountable? Now imagine carrying the weight of millions of lives in your decisions. Marcus Aurelius proved that a leader's strength lies not only in their actions, but in how they master their own thoughts. He was a man surrounded by chaos, yet found peace within himself to save an entire empire. What lessons can we draw from this to face our own challenges? But how exactly did Marcus Aurelius do it? What Stoic principles did he use to make decisions during such dark times? And was his serenity enough to overcome betrayals, epidemics, and wars? Today, we'll uncover the secrets of how an ordinary man, transformed by Stoicism, became the pillar that upheld the greatest empire in the world. In today's video, you'll discover how Marcus Aurelius used Stoic philosophy to navigate the most devastating crises of his time. We'll delve into the Stoic practices that shaped his leadership and explore why, even amid chaos, he remains an enduring example of calm and resilience that continues to inspire us to this day. If you want to learn how to apply Marcus Aurelius' Stoic lessons to your own life and tackle modern challenges, subscribe to the channel and leave a like. Together, we can bring the great lessons of history to transform the present. When we think of the Roman Empire's strength, images of mighty legions and grand conquests often dominate our minds. Yet during the reign of Marcus Aurelius, Rome's survival leaned heavily on something far less tangible: the strength of his mind. At a time when the Antonine Plague decimated the population and barbarian invasions strained the empire's borders, Marcus Aurelius turned not to brute force, but to philosophy. Stoicism, his guiding framework, became a shield against despair and chaos. While others might have succumbed to the overwhelming crises, Marcus focused on what he could control: his thoughts, his actions, and his ability to lead with reason. The Antonine Plague alone could have undone the empire. Millions perished, cities fell into disarray, and the economy crumbled. Despite these challenges, Marcus Aurelius demonstrated an unshakable calm. He reorganized resources, ensured public stability, and resisted the temptation to assign blame or seek solace in superstition. His Stoic mindset allowed him to see past the immediate turmoil and focus on long-term solutions. This restraint, rooted in his philosophical beliefs, enabled him to make decisions grounded in logic rather than fear, a critical distinction that preserved Rome during its darkest days. However, it wasn't just the plague. Threats loomed from every direction, including the Danube frontier, where tribes posed a significant military challenge. Marcus Aurelius, a philosopher by nature, had to transform into a wartime strategist. He wrote in his meditations that the mind must remain undisturbed by external chaos, a principle he clung to while commanding armies and navigating political strife. His ability to compartmentalize, to remain steadfast in his values, even amid relentless pressure, became his greatest weapon. But could his philosophical calm withstand the relentless tide of challenges that came his way? Marcus Aurelius' reliance on Stoicism allowed him to stabilize Rome during a period of unrelenting crises. Yet while his mind remained calm, his role required him to lead brutal military campaigns. How did a man devoted to inner peace reconcile the need for war? And how did these contradictions shape his leadership in ways that defined history? Marcus Aurelius is often remembered as the philosopher emperor, but he was also a leader forced into the unforgiving realities of war. The tribes along the Danube presented an existential threat to Rome's borders, leaving Marcus with little choice but to act decisively. Despite his commitment to Stoicism, a philosophy that champions peace and rationality, he commanded armies and campaigns that were anything but serene. How did a man who valued inner tranquility navigate the chaos of battlefields? Unlike many leaders of his time, Marcus Aurelius approached warfare with an unusual perspective. For him, war was not a glorious pursuit, but a grim necessity. He sought to minimize suffering, often negotiating where others would fight and showing empathy for the enemy. These decisions reflected his Stoic belief that humanity shares a common rationality. Yet, as much as he strived for peace, the brutal realities of the battlefield tested his principles. Leading legions required compromise. Strategies had to prioritize victory over philosophy. In this paradox, Marcus Aurelius proved that even a man of unwavering ethics must sometimes bend under the weight of circumstance. His journals, now known as the Meditations, reveal the inner turmoil he experienced. He wrote of duty, of enduring hardship for the greater good, and of the transient nature of glory. For Marcus, war was a test of endurance, not only for his soldiers but for his Stoic resolve. While others sought personal accolades, Marcus approached his campaigns as a burden to bear, not a triumph to celebrate. Yet the question lingered: could his philosophical integrity survive the compromises war demanded? This paradox extended beyond the battlefield. The constant strain of leadership and the need to balance military might with moral restraint created tension within his governance. Even as he sought peace with external enemies, internal challenges mounted. Conspiracies and betrayals within Rome itself would soon demand an entirely different kind of leadership. How did Marcus Aurelius face the enemies not on the battlefield, but within his own walls? While Marcus Aurelius managed the external threats of plague and war, the challenges inside Rome's political heart proved just as perilous. The Senate, which was supposed to be an ally in governance, often became a breeding ground for conspiracies. Personal ambitions clashed with the empire's greater good, and even close allies harbored hidden agendas. For a leader who valued reason and cooperation, these betrayals tested the core of Marcus' Stoic philosophy. How do you maintain trust and focus when surrounded by deceit? One of the most notable aspects of Marcus Aurelius' approach to internal conflicts was his restraint. Unlike many emperors before him, who responded to dissent with purges and executions, Marcus avoided heavy-handed retaliation. Instead, he sought to understand the motivations of those who opposed him, addressing their concerns when possible and neutralizing their influence when necessary. This careful balance demonstrated his ability to apply Stoicism not just as a personal philosophy, but as a strategy for governance. Yet, this calm approach didn't mean he was blind to the dangers around him. Marcus Aurelius knew the cost of inaction could be catastrophic for the empire. While he didn't always forgive betrayal, he rarely allowed vengeance to guide his actions. For instance, when faced with a mutiny among his generals, Marcus defused the situation not through violence, but by addressing their grievances and reasserting his authority with measured words and actions. This was not weakness, but a calculated move to preserve unity, a skill that became increasingly vital as the empire's challenges compounded. Still, these acts of political grace had limits. The conspiracies highlighted a truth Marcus could not ignore. Even the most rational leader cannot control every outcome. As his health declined and his reign faced increasing pressures, the weight of his decisions loomed larger. Could Stoicism alone shield him from the consequences of his choices? Or was his philosophy beginning to show its limitations as Rome's challenges continued to mount? As Marcus Aurelius' reign drew to its close, the cracks in the empire's foundations became impossible to ignore. The wars on the frontier, the plagues, and the political unrest had stretched Rome's resources to the breaking point. Yet, Through all this, Marcus remained steadfast, embodying the Stoic ideals he had lived by. He had proven that a leader's calm resolve could inspire stability, but his vision for Rome's future rested on precarious ground. Could the lessons of his leadership outlast the man himself? One of Marcus Aurelius' final acts was to secure a succession plan for the empire, a decision that would ultimately spark controversy. Despite his wisdom and foresight, his choice to pass the throne to his son Commodus would have disastrous consequences for Rome. Critics argue that this decision undermined the stability Marcus worked so hard to maintain. But was it a failure of judgment or a reflection of the limited options available to him in a world shaped by familial loyalty and political tradition? Beyond the immediate outcomes of his reign, Marcus Aurelius' true legacy lay in the principles he championed. His meditations became a timeless guide to resilience, offering insights not only for leaders but for anyone facing adversity. He showed that strength is not found in domination, but in the discipline of the mind. His ability to navigate crises with clarity and compassion left an enduring blueprint for leadership that transcends the centuries. However, as we reflect on his life, another question arises. Was Marcus Aurelius' philosophy enough to save Rome, or was it merely a temporary shield against its inevitable decline? And more importantly, can the principles he lived by hold relevance in the modern world, where challenges are no less complex and crises demand both wisdom and action? Marcus Aurelius' leadership held Rome together through crisis. But could philosophy alone save an empire on the brink? As Rome's strength waned, another crisis was brewing, one that came not from invaders, but from within. What happened to the very men who fought to defend the empire? Promised wealth and honor, many Roman veterans instead faced betrayal and neglect. Their disillusionment would turn into rebellion, shaking Rome to its core. Watch our next video to uncover the forgotten fate of Rome's abandoned heroes and how their downfall became a threat to the empire itself.